we now have to make something that is going to control the rules of the game and also update the interface. So we're going to make a game controller. I'm going to right click here, choose create empty, and this is going to be a game controller. Okay, I'm going to move this to this position in the interface, and we're also going to make sure that the position of it is going to be 0, 0, 0. So the game controller is going to be here. Okay, it's an empty object. And now we're going to select everything else that we have except the canvas and the event system and drag inside the game controller because they all belong to the game. Okay, just to keep things organized. Now we're going to save this. And now we need to make a script for this game controller, and we need to name this game mode. Okay, it could be something like avoider or jumper. It could be different ways. So let's right click here, choose create and C# script, and let's name this avoider game controller and hit enter. Okay, so after that we select the game controller that we made here, and we're going to apply this script here, avoider game controller. Right? So to begin, we need to set the time for the game, the duration of the game. So I'm going to type here public float and then duration. Let's set 15F as default. And now that we have the duration, we also need to have a timer. So I'm going to type private float timer. Okay, and in the start method, I'm going to set timer to be the same thing as duration. Okay, this is going to be our internal clock for how long the game is going to be running. In the update method, we're going to type timer minus equals time.delta time. Okay, this delta time property here is going to return how many seconds have passed since the last frame. Since we are in the update method and the update method is called once per frame, this essentially is going to work as a countdown timer. Okay, if 1 second passes, then timer is going to be 1 unit lesser than what it was before. And we need to check if timer is lesser or equal than 0f. That means that the player won the game. Okay, so let's do things one by one. First of all, in the update method, we want to set the text that we have. Okay, so we need to have a reference to that text. So let's make a few adjustments here. We're going to type using unityengine.ui in the beginning of the code. This is going to add the user interface namespace for us, so we're able to deal with text, with images, with sliders, with layout adjusters, several different things. Okay, and here we're going to type public text info text, right? And you notice that we have kind of two categories of variables here, and if we don't worry about organizing this soon, it might turn messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an attribute here. We're going to add 2 brackets, then header. We open and close parentheses, and between parentheses I'm going to type gameplay. This is not going to change how the code works at all, but it's going to be cleaner in Unity. And here I'm going to type header and UI between double quotes. Okay, so it's going to look like this, and I'm going to save this. Now, if you go to Unity and you look at the game controller, at the variables that are going to appear, we have a label called gameplay, then the duration, and a label called UI, and then the info text. This makes a huge difference in the end game here. Okay, if you're working on a big project, it's going to make much easier to find things, and it's actually going to help you on developing a cleaner code. Now we need to make a reference for the info text because right now it says none. So I'm going to open the canvas, bring the text from here and drop it here. Okay, now we can access that info text. And now we should move forward with improving the logic here. In the update method, we're going to type here, if timer is greater than 0f, okay, let's do it like this, else we're going to do something else. So if timer is greater than 0, then we're going to type info text.text equals 2. Then we need to make a string. There's going to be time, colon, and space. We finish the string, plus timer. Okay, so let's see how this is going to look. We're going to save that, move to Unity, wait for the compilation to be complete, and we're going to press play. Okay, so here we are, and you see the timer is very, very difficult to read because we have that huge decimal part here. So what we can do is instead of simply typing timer, we can type mathf.floor. Okay, or we could type ceil, but let's use floor for this. Okay, it's going to convert that number and it's going to remove the decimal part. Okay, it's going to be much easier to read. If we save this and go to Unity now and wait for that to be finished, we're going to press play, and we're going to see that the timer is going to decrease like that. It's going to be much easier for us to read. You could see that it started at 14, okay, because the time starts at 15, but at the first frame it's going to be smaller than 15, and since we use floor, we won't be able to see 15. So that's the moment where you have to decide between using floor and seal, okay, but well, I think this is going to work just fine for us. So what if timer has reached 0? That means the player won the game, okay, if the player didn't die. So here we need to check if the player died. So we need a reference to the player. We're going to type public player, okay, and here in the else we're going to type if player is different than null, it means that the player is alive, okay. So we're going to type info_text.text equals to you win, okay. So we're going to save this. Let's go to Unity, wait for the compilation to be finished, and after that is done, we're going to drag the player from here to here. Okay, so it's properly assigned, alright? And now that we have done this, we also have to check if the player died, okay? So we're going to check if player equals, if player equals to null, that means that the player died. So let's type here, check if the player is alive or is dead. So if the player equals to null, that means the game should be over and the player lost the game. So we can improve this a little bit. We can type here private bool game over, that is going to start as false, and private bool win. Okay, so if player equals to null, we're going to type game over equals to true and win equals to false. Okay, game over because the game finished, and win is going to be false because the player died. And here we're going to check else, so if timer is lesser than 0, so we check if player is different than null, that means game over equals to true and win equals to true as well. Okay, so here we're going to check if the game is finished. Okay, and now for the third block we're going to type send the game over message. So we're going to type if game over equals to true, then we're going to check if win equals to true, or we can just type if win, both ways work. We're going to type info_text.text equals to you win. Else, so if the player died, we're going to type info_text.text equals to you lose. Okay, so we just tidy things up a little bit. We have a game over variable, a win variable, and if the player is dead, game over is going to be set to true and win false. If the time has finished and the player is still alive, then we do this. Okay, so we're going to save this. Let's go to Unity. We wait for the compilation to be finished, and after that's done, we're going to press the play button. Okay, so the player is here, and I just touched the enemy and I died. Okay, so we see the you lose message. Let's try to avoid that. So it's going to look fine for now. If we survive for 15 seconds, we should be able to see the you win message. There's going to be one more adjustment that we have to do. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. After that, times 0, and you win. However, the sphere can still hit the player and say that we lost the game. That's a bit unfair. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, if we win the game, we need to set the player to be invincible. Okay, so here where we set win equals to true, we're going to type player dot then we can type set invincibility. Okay, or we can type this player dot invincible equals to true. And now in the player we're going to do two things. We're going to make a private variable that is going to be private bool invincible. It starts as false, and we're going to make a property so we can set that invincible variable, or we could also make things simple and make a public variable, but this is going to be more tidy. Okay, it's going to be tidier. So public bool invincible, and here we're going to type set, and we're going to type invincible equals to value. So if we save this and we type here player.invincible equals to true, true is going to be passed as a parameter here in set with the name value, and it's going to be set in invincible. And now in the player where we have kill, we're going to type if invincible, Then we're going to return. We're going to stop the execution of this method here in this return call. Even though it's a void method, it still works. Okay, we stop the execution, it's going to be okay. Now we're going to save that, go to Unity, wait for the compilation to be finished, and after that's done, we can press play. Okay, we're going to avoid that enemy, it's going to be jumping around us. So let's wait for the game to be finished, and we're going to see if the player is really invincible. Okay, so we beat the game. 2, 1, 0, and you win, and if it touches the player, nothing special happens because we're invincible now. Okay, so that's great, we have a fully working game.